Hαίrete, friends. Welcome to Classics in Color, a weekly dive into some of the ancient world's wackiest facts. I'm Mark Graves. Let's get started. Did you know that cheesy romance novels have actually been a thing since the ancient world, and probably before then, who knows? But then as now, they were definitely looked down upon a bit. They weren't talked about much, certainly not in circles of academic discussion or anything like that. But again, then as now, despite them not being considered high literature or anything like that, they were still very popular. A lot of these things got written in both ancient Greece and Rome, and surprisingly, several of them have actually survived into the modern world. So you can go read translations of these, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, these romance novels are very similar to Harlequin romances that you might pick up in the library or the airport today. So they're full of stock characters, super cheesy plots that are just chock full of ridiculously convenient coincidences and ridiculously stupid mistaken identities and misunderstandings. There's pirates, there's star-crossed lovers, all of that good stuff. Now, I did read a few of these novels when I was going through college and through grad school, but I had never ran into the one that we're going to focus on in this video until very recently. As always happens, I was reading a book about something completely different. It was about birds, of all things, in the ancient world and how they're used for omens, but I just sort of randomly stumbled across this one reference to this novel, and I was immediately intrigued. So the title of it is Daphnis and Chloe, and I bet you can guess it's a romance about two lovers who are named Daphnis and Chloe. So the novel starts, as so many stories from the ancient world do, with some babies being abandoned at birth and then being picked up and raised by shepherds and having no idea who their birth families were. So these two kids, Daphnis and Chloe, Daphnis is the boy, Chloe is the girl. They grow up together, they're friends, but as they start to get a little bit older, they start to feel a lot more than just friendship. But where a lot of the humor of this novel comes in is in the very first problem that they encounter together, and that is that they are weirdly naive about all things sexual. So at first it seems like maybe they're not even sure that sex is a thing, that it exists, that that's something that they could try. And once they start to figure out, okay, we're trying to have sex here, they have no idea how to do it, and it's very uncomfortable and also very funny. So the first thing they try to do is they go to this old man who gives them very vague advice. He's just weirdly reluctant to give them anything specific. So he just says, kissing and hugging and, maybe take some clothes off, roll around in a field. You'll figure it out, right? You'll figure it out. So he doesn't give them anything more than that, really. So they spend lots of time making out, maybe taking their clothes off, but something's still not clicking. So we're going to look at a passage next that describes them sitting in a field, surrounded by goats and sheep, trying to figure out how to have sex. There, out in the fields, were he-goat pursuits, an even more amorous mounting of the she-goats. They fought over the she-goats, for each had his own harem and kept guard against any clandestine adulterer. Such sights would have spurred even old men to sexual desire as they watched. But as the young couple were young, lusty, and long since questing after love, they were inflamed by what they heard and melted away at what they saw. And they, too, tried to find for themselves something beyond kissing and hugging, especially Daphnis, who is the boy. After a prime of youth spent in winter's idle domesticity, he grew taut at the kisses and horny at the embraces, and was bolder and more eager to try anything. He pressed Chloe to give him all that he wanted and to lie together naked for longer than they used to before, since this was the last untried step in Philotas's instructions so that the sole antidote for love could take effect. She asked what more there was than kissing, hugging, and actually lying down, and what he meant to do once they were lying together naked. What the rams are doing to the ewes, he replied, and the he-goats to the she-goats. Do you notice that after they do that, the females no longer run away from the males, and the males no longer wear themselves out chasing the females, but instead they graze together afterwards as if having shared a mutual pleasure. Apparently, this behavior has a sweetness that overcomes the bitterness of love. And then she responds, don't you also notice, Daphnis, that the rams and the he-goats stand when they do this, and the ewes and the she-goats stand when they have it done, the males hopping onto the females and the females carrying them on their backs. And you ask me to lie down with you and naked to boot. Yet how much woollier these females are than I am, even with my clothes on. So Daphnis agreed, and reclining with her, he lay there a long time, not knowing how to do any of what he grew taught for. He stood her up and clung to her from behind, imitating the he-goats, but much more frustrated than before, he sat down and started to weep for being more inept than he-goats in making love. So in case you got lost on anything there, the two of them are sitting in a field surrounded by goats who are getting it on, and they're somehow turned on by this, and they decide, well, okay, let's try to do what the goats are doing because they seem to have this figured out. So Chloe says, well, hang on, the instructions were to lay down, but that's clearly not what the goats are doing, and to take our clothes off, but again, the goats, they have their clothes on, right? They're furry, covered in hair and all that stuff. So let's ditch the advice. Let's just try doggy style and we'll leave our clothes on. So they try to have sex that way. And obviously it doesn't work out so well. So poor Daphnis is so frustrated. He goes out by himself and looks for more advice again. This time, probably wisely, he tries an older woman, and she does give him some more detailed instructions, but she also scares him. So she says that if he actually has sex with Chloe, that Chloe will, quote, scream and cry and lie bleeding as if murdered. So he's terrified by this. And okay, just in case there are any virgins watching this, it is important to take your time and be careful and gentle the first time around. But this is a little over dramatic. So understandably, he's horrified by this. So he doesn't even tell Chloe about this advice. And shortly after this, they're both kidnapped. So she's kidnapped by one group of people, and then he's kidnapped by pirates. And so they are separated for a while and have lots of misadventures. But at the very end of the novel, when you get to your preordained happy ending, they are finally reunited. Perhaps they're a bit more mature from their adventures, and they are finally able to figure out Daphnis's advice that he got. Daphnis and Chloe lay together naked, hugged and kissed, spending that night more sleepless than any owl. Daphnis did some of what Lycaenium had taught him, and for the very first time, Chloe learned that what had happened in the woods was nothing but shepherd's games. So it gives you a nice, very subtle little wink and a nod there to let you know that they figured it out. So I think this is now my favorite ancient romance novel. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Special thank you, as always, to subscribers and to Patreon members, and I hope to see all of you again next week. Hαίrete!